And I know that Jackie had met with us earlier, so she should be on here. Not seeing any emails from anybody either, so we'll just hang for a couple seconds here, a couple more. Jackie, are you ready to begin?
Yeah, sorry, the links, I don't know where the link ended up. It just didn't connect on my computer. So,
Okay,
hi,
I'm going
everybody.
to start recording and we'll get you started.
Looks like we're still waiting on a couple of people, or is this everyone for this week?
I had Brendan that had registered, and I know several people have registered here in the last few minutes. So I think he's the only one that's not signed up, that's not here. So, but we can go ahead and begin since we do have a quorum now.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hopefully I can do as good of a job as Bart did for the last 2 years. My name is Jackie Becker, and I'll be taking over for this month as the chair of Parks and Rec. Since we have everybody here, it looks like our first item of business is to look over the minutes from both October, and then we'll move on to November. So if everyone can take a look at that. And
Jackie?
yes.
One moment, I need to do a little brief opening.
Correct. I forgot about that. Read your statement.
All right. That's all right. Good evening, everyone. I have a few housekeeping items for the Zoom meeting. I'm Roger Steinbrock, the marketing specialist for the Parks and Recreation Department. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. Unless you're participating during the meeting, please turn off video. This allows the active member meeting participants to be seen on screen. You'll still be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating, please turn on your video. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individuals' videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name each time you speak for the benefit of those participating remotely. And now I'll turn it back over to Vice Chair Jackie Becker.
All right, so let's try this again. I know last month we were unable to look at the minutes from October, so if we could start and read over the minutes, and if there's any comment or updates we need to do, let me know. If not, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
Jackie, if we could take both of the, take one individually, each one individually, just to put it on the record that way.
Yeah, this is just for October right now.
Jackie, this is Marilyn Hull. I think Val was trying to get your attention.
Oh,
I have a question about the October minutes, and I know these meetings can go really long, but has anything else happened on the water tower? That was on the agenda update that month, and I know the residents are still trying to fight that, so I just wondered if there was any update on that. The water tower park. This is Val Renault.
Jackie, Roger Steinbrock, Marketing Supervisor, why don't we put that at the concern of the board so we can bring it up at that time, not during the minute review for approval?
got it.
This is Marilyn Hull, board member. I would move approval of the October minutes.
This is Amber Nickel, board member. I'll second.
All right, so we have Marilyn Hull with a first and Amber with a second. So all in favor, I believe we just do the hands, right? So say aye. So I see John Nalbandian, Val, Pat Phillips, Marilyn Hull, and Amber Nickel. So it passes. Thank you.
Yes.
If we can move on to the November minutes and give those a read over, and same thing, then I'll just be looking for a motion and a second.
Jackie, this is Val Renault again, and this is just a point of clarification on the, there was a mention of the Holcomb shade structure that didn't get put up when expected, but I wondered, Mark, does that mean they're removing the roof on the picnic area, or is that something new? The shade structure at Holcomb.
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. Just quick answer to that. The Holcomb shade structure is actually a new project that we're providing shade over the bleachers for those ball diamonds. So that's something that was on the CIP, and it'll be, we didn't get it done this year, but it'll be done early spring.
This is Pat Phillips, board member. I make a motion to approve November minutes.
Second.
All right, so we have a first from Pat Phillips and a second from Val Renault. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And I see the hands up from everybody. And please don't mind my cat being very annoying right now, but the minutes pass. Thank you. So after the minutes, it looks like we're time for public comment. Did we have anyone sign up or someone that we're waiting on right now? Roger?
I believe JT is online. JT, did you want to speak at public comment or? Here because live stream seems unavailable. The live stream is unavailable. Is that what you're saying, JT? I'll need to check with Porter on that. Okay. You didn't have public comment though, JT.
I'll shoot an email to Porter.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. He doesn't have public comment.
All right, so now it looks like we will be moving into our agenda items. So I see that we have our city manager here and you are our number one, Craig. So if city manager, you'd like to get us started and talk about the strategic plan.
Thank you very much. City Manager Craig Owens. I am really pleased to be here and speaking with all of you tonight. I have been trying to touch base with all of our, many of our 48 boards and commissions. I'm not going to meet with all of them, but many of them have a significant impact on and attachment to the strategic plan. And so I'm visiting with each of these boards and commissions just to kind of talk to you about how it was formed, what's contained in it, the structure and framework, and then hopefully to answer any questions that you might have. We hope ideally any strategic plan is an alignment document. It helps everybody understand together where we're headed and how individual and group contributions can help move us forward. So that's really the purpose of my visit with you tonight. So I'll move relatively quickly and then we can get into questions and answers and would appreciate the dialogue at that time. So this is the city's really the second strategic plan that the city has had. The prior one predated me and was one that kind of introduced strategic planning to the community. It was a document that was built largely by the discussions and ideas of the city commission with some staff input, and did serve as kind of a guide to what other additional new strategic priorities we should have. So a prioritization document. What it didn't do though necessarily was build from scratch everything that we're in business to do. It was kind of the assumption that a lot of the other things would keep going and then we'd also do these strategic priorities. So it was a good starter document and kind of a good introduction. This time that we've spent in the last 24 months roughly was built intentionally off of a very solid base of listening. So we believe that it was really important that we start with a listening process. So I asked for volunteers amongst the city staff to come help us go out into the community and do that listening work so that we could be informed by the expectations of the community. I was hoping we get 20 volunteers. We ended up receiving 50 volunteers that were excited to go into the community and help us do this work. So we did some training and kind of helped to set, this is what we're trying to get out of these interactions that we have. And we set out to try and identify places where people were already gathering, where people in Lawrence were already talking about what they want for their community and what their expectations were. We asked for invitations to those gatherings and those viewpoints. By using 50 people from our organization that have their own individual unique connection with the community, it really did help us diversify how we did that outreach. We did actually, ask to be invited to where groups gather, but also we set ourselves up at Sports Pavilion and at the library, and we tabled and we tried to catch people as they were living. And ask them to give us some of that feedback. So through all of that, and then we had the y'all come meetings, at a microphone at the Carnegie building or some other of the big facilities, just letting people have lots of ways that they could access it, but also trying to intentionally pull voices in that frequently are not invited, that aren't thought to be included. And that's a really important piece because we understand that even if people don't participate in the thought processes of the communication, they may have really important needs that we need to understand and meet. So we did that process and I think it worked very well. We had 3,000 contacts through that process. So a very robust listening session. We brought in those viewpoints and we kind of collated them, organized them, curated them into 5 outcome areas. And if I can share my screen, Roger, or whoever is in control, I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you're seeing the beautiful 5 dots there. This is all on our website. So anything that I'm drawing your attention to is on our public website, and all this data and information is all accessible. And that's an important part of the way our strategic plan has to work. And that's so that we get lots of engagement with the community and that everybody can see together how we're making progress. So we organized around 5 different outcome areas: unmistakable identity, strong welcoming neighborhoods, safe and secure, prosperity and economic security, and connected city. And we kind of believe that those 5 areas kind of encapsulate a whole bunch of work that we have set out to try and do. There's a statement that's in very small print here, and I won't ask you to read it, but as you look at this, each of these has a very thoughtfully, carefully, painstakingly worded and crafted statement about what we intend or what we mean by each of these outcomes. And we really kind of had built these with 2 audiences in mind. First of all, the audience was those 3,000 plus people, and hopefully there were some of you too, that contributed and gave us their perspectives and asked us to represent what their desires were for the community. We wanted them to be able to see this document, read these words, and feel like they were heard, and that we reflected their interests, their needs, their concerns, their dreams and goals in these statements. So that was a very important and intentional process to try and do that. The other audience, of course, is the 888 professional staff members that will be doing a lot of this work. And I would include you also in that work as the policy advisors to the City Commission. You will be doing the policy work to continue this process and support this work. So it's important that you also have a clarity and understanding when you read these words, that you understand what we're in efforts to try and accomplish. So behind each of these 5 outcome areas, we've built a scorecard of 70 to 80 key performance indicators. We know it's important when we're setting out to do difficult and complex work that will take time, that we understand how we're making progress, and we're able to see indicators that we are getting to the place that we intend. So this strategic plan is made to be proactive and intentional. So we're trying to add proactivity and intention to what we're doing in everything that we do. And so I think when you go in and look at each of these key performance indicators behind each of these, hopefully you'll see that we can understand progress, and that if things aren't progressing the way we'd like, that it'll give us an indication so that we can change course, that we can adjust, that we can add resources, that we can make policy changes to try and achieve what we're trying to get done as we act experimentally and we try to work together. So that's how that one is structured. I want to talk a little bit about when you click on each of these, when you're looking at the scorecard, you're going to see some really cute orange cones under construction. So in the few areas, and I'm very proud of the orange cones, because what they signal is that we were stubbornly intent on picking the right measures that would align with what our goals are, so that we are measuring progress the right way, even if we didn't yet have the data. So there are some places where we had some data that was somewhat aligned, but it wasn't going to be the best progress indicator. And we didn't just pick the data that we already had. We know that we need to build new data sets that are the right measures, so we can use this tool over the course of the next several years to do this difficult work. And hopefully longitudinally we'll develop some trends, and we can really use that to try and create better plans and make better progress. The other really important part of this framework has made it much more complicated, more difficult, but also, I believe, much, much better. And that is, we established these 6 areas of commitment, because what we did here and what we understand is that what we accomplish is important, but how we accomplish it is also just as important. And so we established these 6 commitment areas. Those are community engagement, efficient and effective processes, equity and inclusion, sound fiscal stewardship, engaged and empowered teams, and environmental sustainability. These represent commitments to how we do our work in all those 5 areas, or really anything that would come later if we adjusted the outcomes, and if we added outcomes, or if we did anything, we would still believe that these are the lenses through which we should measure our success. And so when you look at the scorecards and the outcome areas, you'll see that there are measurements, there are indicators for success that align with each of these commitments as well. So we really can't shortchange any of these. We've got to honor all of these commitments as we're making progress together as a community. Otherwise, it really won't sustain, and we won't be really making progress the way we would like to as a community. So that's an important additional piece. So that's the framework. A lot of effort has gone into this. I should say it also is not perfect. So a lot of work has gone into this. As we start to use this as a tool and we start to do our work, we know that we'll see things that we'd like to adjust. That's an important thing that we need to be ready to do. As we evolve and make progress, we may want to challenge ourselves with additional things. This will be a framework we can use and that will continue to grow with us as the community changes and as we get better as a community and go to where we'd like to go. With that, I'll pause for any questions that you might have or any comments or suggestions. And I'll
Craig,
stop.
this is John Nalbandian. Craig, I know that the city of Olathe does fairly frequent, actually, resident surveys by ETC, and I know you're familiar with that. But I don't think that we don't have a history of a lot of the sort of systematic engagement. Where are you with that type of thing?
City Manager Craig Owens. That's a great question. So we have run one since I've come to town 2.5 years ago. And it is something that we are going to get into a regular annual habit. And the reason that it's extra important now is that when you go to look at the key performance indicators that we've picked, almost all of the outcome areas have a community engagement key performance indicator that is tied back to our annual citizen survey in various ways. I'll also add that it is, we're going to oversample that survey so that we can have reliable data on subsets of our population, demographic subsets of our population, to ensure that their experiences and the feedback that they're giving is equitable. And so those are hardwired, built-in key performance indicators across several of the outcome areas.
Any other questions from the board? If not,
John Nalbandian. Craig, another point that you might consider is I don't think that there is very much systematic sort of orientation of advisory boards with the city council or city commission. And I think it would really be helpful from time to time if we really did engage in a conversation with the city commission about what do they expect, what do they need from the advisory boards.
City Manager Craig Owens. Yes, I agree. nearly 400 people that serve on our 48 boards and commissions. So I absolutely agree. That is a lot. All of you are volunteers and deeply passionate about your community and are appointed because you are the trusted advisors to the city commission. And it's really in that spirit that I'm visiting you tonight to outline this and draw your attention to the policy document of the strategic plan so that we get that alignment, so that you have a clarity. And I think joint meetings and interactions that can happen formally or informally are also a way to do it. But I want to be super clear, as I was with when I met with all the employees in small groups over 65 meetings. This is our policy document of what we are in business to do. And so it is the policy statement articulated by the city commission of where we're trying to go as a community. And so I think both of those things and other devices and tools are going to be important alignment mechanisms as you do your work, as staff does its work, and as, of course, the city commission represents the community in the policy work and decisions that they do.
All right, any last questions, anyone? If not, Craig, City Manager Craig Owens, thank you very much for taking the time to go over what our new city plan is for this. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. City Manager Craig Owens, I really appreciate it. Again, thank you all for your service and all the work that you do to keep us moving forward. And I'm sorry I cut in front of what's really an exciting part of your agenda, and that's Lindsay Hart. So I'll let you get on to that. But thank you all very much.
Okay.
All right, so it looks like we are now moving on to agenda item 2. This is Jackie Becker. Sorry, I need to get into saying that. So we need to introduce the Assistant Director of Parks and Rec, Lindsay Hart. Welcome.
Hi, Dirk Rogers, Director of Parks and Rec. I'll read a just quick bio and let Lindsay fill in the details that I miss. Lindsay comes to Lawrence with 17 years of experience from Leawood, Lenexa, and Overland Park. She's been in aquatics and special events supervisor. She's also served as a rec superintendent, and most recently at Overland Park and Recreation as a recreation program manager. Lindsay is a member of CARE-PA and RPA, and she's received a bachelor's degree from K-State. Okay. Oh, yeah, you got one thumb up. I'm a KU at heart. She's a graduate of many training programs, and some of these include Leadership Intensive Program, Tomorrow's Leaders Institute, Revenue and Development Management School, all through CARE-PA, as well as Leadership Lenexa. Her passion for public service, experience, and skills would be a great addition to our department. With that, Lindsay, take it away.
Thank you, Derek. I think you covered everything, but I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for being so welcoming. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you as I've been getting to know all the staff the last few weeks. So it's going to be a really fun journey, and I'm ready to jump in and get started.
Hi, Lindsay. Board Member John Blazik. Hey, are you going to move to Lawrence?
I've been asked that quite a bit. I don't know yet. I currently live in Lenexa, and I have a 9-year-old daughter. And so my husband and I have talked about, the possibility of that. So I can't say for sure, but I definitely love this community and have really enjoyed being a part of it so far. And I don't hesitate one bit to hop on K10 and come up here for the weekend. So I've already been here quite a bit, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Lindsay, this is Pat Phillips, board member. I just want to welcome you. And also want to know, have you had experience working with advisory boards in your past jobs?
Yes, I have. In my past positions, specifically with City of Leawood and City of Lenexa, I attended every park board meeting monthly, so I'm actually very familiar and comfortable attending these meetings, as well as city council, making presentations and things like that to the various boards and commissions.
Thank you.
John Nalbandian. Lindsay, can you, you've worked for a number of cities in the metro area. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on what was really cool about working in Lenexa and Overland Park in terms of Parks and Rec, the things they did that you really like, wow, that was cool?
Sure. The longest part of my career was with the city of Lenexa for 10 years. And that was really neat to see the development they had with Lenexa City Center, and which is at 87th and Renner. A big development they put together included the public market and the library and the Shawnee Mission School District pool. It was a really neat collaboration. I thought that the organizations worked well together, and it really brought the community together with some really neat collaborations. And I was really lucky to be a part of that and helped develop quite a bit of programming and some of those relationships. And I think, and I just like to clarify, it was actually the city of Olathe, not Overland Park, but they're so close to each other, it can get confusing. Olathe is working on some similar concepts, trying to connect with the library and some of their other community partners. And so I see some of that here as well. And I know that as part of the strategic plan, that's something that we want to work on, connecting these partners. And so I feel like I kind of have some of that experience, and I'm jumping into a similar concept, which is, I think, really great for the community.
And Lindsay, John Nalbandian again, didn't Lenexa make a major commitment to environmental sustainability with that lake? And am I thinking wrong, or there was something about that? I think Ron Norris was there. I don't know if you were there when he was there.
Yes, and again, I apologize, Lindsay Hart, Assistant Director. I'm not announcing myself when I speak. Ron Norris actually left right when I started Lenexa, which was about 10 years ago. And they had just built Lake Lenexa. But yes, it was a big stormwater project. And I know that's a big, piece that they are focusing on and continue to, keep at the top of their list.
Hey, Lindsay, this is Marilyn Hull, member. I just want to welcome you and say how pleased I am that you're doubling the gender diversity of the senior staff and also bringing the average age down. Nothing against all y'all that have been working so hard for so long, but I think having a little bit more youthful representation on the staff is going to be super important as we make sure that our younger residents and newer residents are listened to, and that their recreational needs are considered. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Lindsay. This is Val Renault. I'd also just like to welcome you and say we really look forward to working with you.
Thanks.
Jackie Becker. Of course, I already said welcome, but I was curious, is there anything so far in the time that you spent in Lawrence that has really surprised you so far about Parks and Rec that you didn't see in other places where you've worked so far?
I would say not necessarily surprised, but it was just really reaffirming that we have a great staff and everybody is very passionate and welcoming. As I said, I've gotten to know everybody as quickly as possible. And there's still a lot of time for that, but we have a really great team and they're passionate about what we do. And so that's very exciting for me. And I'm really looking forward to working with them moving forward.
Anyone else? All right. If not, thank you so much. And, on behalf of our board, we look forward to working with you more. And as a lifelong swimmer, I look forward to seeing all the skills you have with helping us with some of our pool situations and concerns we've had coming through recently. So it's really nice to have you on board. So I think with no other comments for Lindsay, I think we could move on to our next agenda item, number 3, which is an update on seasonal recruitment.
And Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. Lindsay Hart has been very active with the aquatics department in this area, and I'll let her fill you in.
Sure. Lindsay Hart, Assistant Director. We actually do have a follow-up meeting tomorrow, so hopefully I can have some more information here in the next week or so. However, prior to when I started, I know HR met with our aquatic staff to discuss some ways we can boost the recruitment efforts. And I know one big thing that we just were able to approve is a staff referral bonus. Is going to now be $150 to try and help us, recruit and spread the word, via current staff. So we're excited to announce that. And again, we're currently working on other efforts, which include, really just the marketing aspect. I know Roger is going to be helping us quite a bit with this, with Instagram and some newspaper articles, as well as making sure new hires understand that we offer free training, uniforms, things like that, which is a big deal, and hopefully a bonus to many staff, as well as we're discussing offering a shift differential pay for the difficult hours as far as the really early shifts and things like that. So again, we're hopefully going to get some of those wrapped up tomorrow. But I was excited to announce that we were able to increase the referral bonus to $150, and we're hoping that will really help.
This is Pat Phillips, board member. Lindsay, I think that referral bonus is a great idea. I've had it work very successfully in where I work. I also saw advertising at the aquatic center already for the position, so I think that's really smart to get it out there right now. So well done. Thank you.
All right, so let's see our next one. If there's nothing else with seasonal recruitment, our next agenda item is number 4, and it's the COVID update face covering policy. We can get some information on that, please.
Okay. I can go over the face covering and I can go over the COVID. I would say Roger knows the COVID better than I do, but Roger will correct me if I miss anything. How's that? He keeps an eye on the stats for us. And unfortunately, we just keep going the wrong direction. I'm sure you're well aware. We've started the spike up. The 14-day rolling average is an all-time high. Previously, it was 42.14 back on September 15th, when there were 812 cases. Total cases increased by 39, 6% plus, and the 14-day rolling average increased by 7%. So looking at the December 13th numbers, what's that? Page. Our current average daily case counts 42.79, 14-day moving average. Number of current active cases, 651, which is good. It's lower than our past high. A very important number is current number of COVID inpatients, OMH is 15. Is that still correct, Roger?
Yeah, it went down from 18.
So we're down from 18. Looking at, if you looked, I don't have the chart, but we kind of plateaued and then it took a big spike up as of Monday today. And if you look at the Lawrence Douglas County Public Health numbers, we're in the yellow. The yellow runs from a 14-day movage average of 25 up to 50, and active number of cases active runs from 500 to 1,000 in there. So we're going in the wrong direction. Currently with our masking, when we were in the green, which spiked up dramatically, we went back to masks recommended if you're vaccinated. That's on your honor. We're not checking cards. Unvaccinated, masks required in our facilities. When you're exercising, whether you're playing sports, you're down on the courts, you're on a cardio machine, you're lifting weights, you can take your mask off. Encourage social distancing. Lawrence Douglas County Public Health, through I think it's about December 22nd, our health order is still kids aged 2 to 11 must wear masks. So thus our coaches, our referees, anybody that's in our program, class instructors need to wear a mask when they're working with that demographic. We don't have any guidance from the city yet, but my expectation, just looking at the numbers, is we'll be back to mask required to enter our facilities here shortly. I think we can meet the intent and follow the Douglas County Public Health guidelines, and we'll continue to monitor it and be dynamic in how we comply with the county recommendations going forward. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
This is Marilyn Hall, board member. The last time I was in the sports pavilion, masks were required around the track, but they were not required in the weight areas and the cardio machine areas, and not in the lower level courts. I was just wondering what was the justification for that, and if you're going to continue differentiating between who's on the track and who's in other parts of that big open space.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks Recreation, and conferring with our risk management department in the city, the recommendation was based on the socialization aspect and the proximity to others. Our recommendation was to be more open, and we follow the recommendations of our city that saw something more at a risk and took a conservative approach. It's something that we'll continue to have a discussion about with them. And I think you're right. If you're jogging around a track and you're spaced, then, to me, that's no different than being on a basketball court or on a cardio machine or in the weight room. But there are people that just get on the track and just walk and talk and not social distanced. But I think that was a rationale. Mark's shaking his head because he's on incident command. He probably knows more than I do.
Yeah, Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. Yeah, I can give you a little vision as to where we're going, I believe. So the incident command, which is made up of police, fire, risk management, all the major departments of the city. I think what we're going to try to do is tie directly to the green, yellow, red that the health department puts out. So this recently, we went green for a very, very long time, but we stayed with masks on. So actually, if you look at the green requirements of the health department, masks are recommended but not required. So we want to be a little nimble each way. So we were really, really conservative. We were green for a couple of months and we stayed with masks on. And then right as soon as we decided masks were optional, we went to yellow. So that's the goal for tomorrow's meeting, is to try to hash that out a little bit. It concerns not only public buildings, but staff. How do we do meetings? Do we stay virtual like this, or do we come in person? So I look for that to be a fairly cut and dry based on Lawrence Douglas County Health.
This is John Nalbandian. I just want to put in a good word for the staff. There have been times when I've gone to when masks were required, and I would walk into a facility and, not have my mask, and didn't seem like staff was reluctant at all to say, you need a mask, And I just I was really grateful for that, because it wasn't like I was defying wearing a mask. It was just like I forgot it, or it was around my neck or something. So anyway, just if staff has any doubts about the value of them speaking up, at least one of us feels like thank you.
Derek Ryder, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'll have to pass that on to staff. We have our get together. I think you're all invited to that, to the holiday party tomorrow, which will be social distancing indoors at the community building. But yes, we'll pass on that. I know that's appreciated. That's not it's kind of a thankless job to remind people to wear a mask. I don't care where you are, whether you're a private business or in a rec center, that isn't always well received. So I appreciate that.
Jackie Becker, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a thankless job to have to tell people to put their masks on. So absolutely, staff pushing through this whole year, basically having to tell people to do that. It's most appreciated in our community to know that we're doing our best to try to get back to the green. So thanks. Any other comments or questions for this? All right. I do not hear any, so we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is number 5, the update on the emergency winter shelter, which I believe is you, Derek.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. Yes, we started this, looked like the week of October 31st and November 6th. And it's been based on weather. So when the Lawrence Journal World forecast the weather to be 35 degrees or below 35 degrees, they open the winter shelter. First building is the community building, and we can host up to 75 individuals. The backup, if that ever gets reached, we will overflow to the East Lawrence Center. The numbers, I'll just use this last week, December 5th through December 11th. Our highest occupancy has been 13. Our lowest since inception has been about 2, but this last week, was ranging quite a bit higher. It got a little cooler. And then of course, this week we're into a warm snap. The expectation is when we start to get colder, more people will start to come in. If they've got a nice place to camp, they don't probably want to leave their belongings to come indoors for a night or two, then go back out. We've had staff, we have volunteers. I think we are well prepared with the numbers we have to run the program. Incidents have been low, or there's been a few things that would be expected when you're running a program like this, but they really haven't been nowhere near anything like we had last year with the hotels. So very promising, and I think staff's doing a fantastic job, and really appreciative of all the volunteers, and the donations are coming in for the group. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Derek, John Nalbandian, I don't know why I'm so talkative tonight, but I do have a question. I know, has there been discussion, conversation about having resources available at the center? I mean, resources meaning a mental health professional or a medical person, or someone there who not every day but from time to time, who could provide some service or some comfort to some of the people who are there.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. I am not aware of anything formalized or a day of the week. I'll have to pass it on to Mitch Young, who is the coordinator of the Winter Emergency Shelter, and ask him. I know Bert Nash has been heavily involved, and so has shelter volunteers. Our staff have had the de-escalation training. Happy to report we opened that up to our staff, and they had over 83 people take that. So not only is it great for working with a population that struggles, but even just working in a rec center or working out in the park, to know how to de-escalate a situation is fantastic. So John, I'll pass on your recommendation to Mitch and see if I can't get some updates on that.
This is Pat Phelps, board member. Derek, how has this affected, or has it affected any changes in program locations? And if so, has there been any problems from those participants as far as those changes?
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation, and Lindsay can feel free to step in with anything she has. One of the things that we noted, East Lawrence Center is an overflow location, but we don't see that being impacted for a while, although they changed their hours, which normally would have been 8 to 8 like Holcomb to 9 to 6. So going into the winter break, you have a lot of parents, and East Lawrence Center was developed, I think, in part for a latchkey population of kids. And so we wanted to make sure that we were available for that population of kids that maybe don't have anywhere to go. They don't feel like they don't know they're being supervised when they go to rec center, but they are. So we got the hours open back up to 8 to 8 for the break. So we'll have kids there, which is the same at Holcomb. Community building, I believe, is 9 to 6. If for some reason we need to expand over the East Lawrence Center, then we would adjust hours accordingly to make sure we can clean the facilities, do what we need to do. To your question, Pat, I would say yes. I live with an individual that takes yoga classes and does other things. And so, yeah, I hear about, we need more space. And, what about the Carnegie? And, what about using this? And so, yeah, that's a little struggle for staff to try to make sure that they have enough room and time available for their programs and classes. Lindsay, I don't know if you have anything to add or thoughts.
Yeah, Lindsay Hart, Assistant Director. I'll just echo what Derek said. And, in the short amount of time I've had to speak with staff, they have mentioned some concerns just about programming and things that would normally be held, at some of these facilities that they've had to move elsewhere, just knowing that it is now being used for the shelter. However, we have a very creative staff, and they've been able to move things around and they're making it work. So while it's not ideal, we're still able to offer, I think, some really good quality programming. So yeah, and as Derek mentioned, the hours at the East Lawrence Center will be expanded 8 to 8 starting December 20th. So we're excited for that.
And Derek Rogers, Director of Parks Recreation. One other thing on hours. I know pre-COVID, we had Sports Pavilion Lawrence open at 5:30 in the morning. And we've had a lot of requests to bring that back. Right now, it still opens at 7. We had a great group of part-time staff that liked to come in. They knew everybody when we walked in the door at 5:30. We lost that capability. And so we're trying to get back to opening up at 5:30. It's finding the individuals that are willing to come in at that hour. And that might be part of that incentive on hourly pay. If you're willing to come in and work at 5:30 in the morning, maybe we pay you a little bit extra.
This is John Nalbandian again. Derek, I was reading in that in your national bulletin or that we get, the monthly, about how important playgrounds and being able to play is for kids. And I was wondering, given the initiative that the school district is taking with Kennedy School, former Kennedy School, to make it a kind of a child development thing, whether Parks and Rec is involved in it at all.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. I have had no contact with the school district on the Kennedy School. I always am intrigued and am always looking for opportunities with large buildings that might have other possibilities, and Kennedy obviously being one of them. So that's something we'll have to reach out to the school district and ask them if we couldn't be part of the plan.
I think that would be really cool, and would appreciate you coming back to us and letting us know whether or not Parks and Rec has been able to connect with the school district regarding that Kennedy School.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. They'll reach out to the school district and report back in January.
Jackie Becker here. Thanks, Derek. Any other questions regarding the shelter? All right, I'm not seeing any more. So it looks like we'll go on to our next update, which would be about Yarda.
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. So I want to report Marilyn really hasn't done what she said she would do. I was a little disappointed in her, but oh wait, that's me. I'm sorry. So yeah, I read that wrong. No, I honestly, I haven't had time to move that forward. That just tied up with year-end budgeting and whatnot. So we need to get with that group and just kind of talk about what we can and can't do. Unless Marilyn has a better report than I had.
No, I don't have a report. I was just sort of waiting for you to make that contact because I've been approached by Livewell Lawrence, which is applying for a major grant that has some different community engagement parts to it. And one of the things they'd like to include in the grant is potentially working with the Mexican American community on some sort of Yarda recognition, whether that's along the Loop Trail or elsewhere. So they've been kind of waiting to hear from me. And so that's why I've been pressing you a little bit on that is there are other community members who have a deadline of a grant proposal, and they're trying to get a report back from us on what the reaction was of the folks we met with to what we can and can't do.
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. Marilyn, did you want to maybe just spearhead getting a meeting set up? And I don't know what your timeline is, but I just need to make time to be with you on that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Even though I'm a little old compared to Lindsay, that's what I hear. Lindsay's older than she looks. She's like almost 60.
Jackie Becker here. At least, Mark, you do have a K-State person with you now, so you shouldn't push it too much, right?
I do feel good about that.
Marilyn, do you know when the grant was going to be due? So we kind of know where we're working from the Parks and Rec perspective, from the Livewell side?
I don't, but I can easily find out. And we can report back. It sounds like if I take some initiative and try to get Mark together with Norm Murphy and anybody else to figure out what, really what those folks want to do next as the next step. I can report back to anybody that's interested.
Great. Jackie Becker here. Thank you for that, Marilyn. Obviously, as someone who's also part of the Yarda committee, I definitely am excited to hear that Livewell's taking, hearing it and hoping to create some, working with our Mexican American community to definitely have that history available to show everyone in our community. Any other comments or questions on Yarda? All right. If not, we're going to move on to agenda 7, which is the trail additions and improvements for Hobbs and Haskell with the Lawrence Loop.
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. If you haven't been by, the trail section through Hobbs is done, which goes all the way down to 8th Street. So it's kind of a nice addition. There's probably some signage we need to do to kind of direct people through that section. And then also down to 29th Street, which is a lot of times people don't get by there. That section's actually done too, or 95% done. That was probably the most difficult part of the whole project because it was expanding a drainage culvert and coming up with right of way along that edge. So that's getting really close, should be done in the next week or two. Other trail projects, we still in the works on the one from over by Hallmark, so Peterson Park over to Michigan. So we're ready to bid that project. And that one, if you recall, actually goes under the turnpike entrances into the city. So it's a pretty substantial project. Excuse me. The other project we're having a little more difficulty with is Michigan to Sandra Shaw. So we're having some land acquisition issues in there that some of the property owners aren't real thrilled about the trail being near or on their property. So continuing conversation there. We actually have a KDOT grant to construct that, but we're gonna have to come up with something on the alignment. We're starting to run out of options there, to be honest. The other project on trails is, I don't know if you recall, we were talking about doing ADA sloping for the Lawrence Loop. So where we would actually digitally map the trails and slopes, so we can put out a system that basically anyone could go on and see what challenge areas there are. So we've already mapped it all. We haven't got a produced map that we can put out, but probably in the next month or two. We lost our GIS coordinator who was doing that project with us. So we kind of got a little setback, but I hope this winter we'll have that map out, which I think it's going to be pretty cool. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Mark, what did you say that the one you're having trouble with land acquisition on is the Michigan to Sandra Shaw?
Right. So it basically where we come across on that first project. So we're going from Peterson Park to Michigan. So it just basically stops on the west side of Michigan, go across the street. So we have a route to come down Michigan a ways, but then when we're cutting over to get to Sandra Shaw, there's one property owner that we need to be friends with, and he's not seeing eye to eye with us right now. So I don't know what we'll do with that. I don't know if we'll look at condemnation, or we've offered easements and he's not really interested in allowing an easement. So we'll just keep working on it.
Jackie Becker, Vice Chair. I did want to ask about, well, I love the 29th Street concrete. It's really nice and smooth. I was curious about, and Derek and we talked about this, the people turning off of Haskell off that like Scoodin area. It's still really active. Is there anything that we can do to make sure that our pedestrians and cyclists who are coming from Burroughs Creek and driving and biking on there have a right of way, or is there anything that can be done to make that intersection a little safer for our bipedal people?
Yeah, Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. The city engineers actually looked at the design originally, and we've notified them since that we have some concerns there. I don't know. I mean, technically the bikes and bike ped would have right of way. It's the cars that don't know that is the problem. So it's not a great situation, but I think with the way they put the crossing in there is helpful. Signage will be helpful. The problem is people whip around that corner. So don't have a great solution.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks Recreation. Jackie, I agree with you. I rode through it again today, and less traffic, but just because you're in the right, you still get hit by a car doesn't make it right. And I'm agreeing with Mark and the engineers that although the pedestrians and bicyclists in that crosswalk have the right of way, traffic and the public's you have to increase their awareness if they don't do some traffic calming there. Or change how they go about trying to get around that light. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's still, that's one of those places my head's on a swivel as soon as I come off the Haskell Trail between the business down there and traffic coming in and out. So.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I keep thinking like, would speed bumps be a really good idea? But then there's all the trucks that I know need to get through. And so it is, but it's definitely those cars that are just sprinting down Haskell to beat the light that, depending on where the sun's located, definitely makes it difficult. So hopefully we can find a solution soon. Any other comments?
Marilyn, Jackie, precisely where is it that you said the problem is?
Oh, it's the intersection as you come off Burroughs Trail and you take the left now, that's all nicely concreted for the bikes. And then it's just when you hit where you could go right. I don't even know the name of that road, but as you're heading your way. I'm sorry, what?
Haskell Lane, right before Haskell.
Okay, so it's Haskell Lane right before Haskell. And the cars go really fast around that corner. And I've ridden it twice recently just to kind of keep my eye on it. It's definitely still something we should consider for the future because it's definitely a dangerous intersection. Any other comments or questions for the bike trails update? So now we're moving on to E, which is the concerns board member items of interest. Which I think, Val, you had one from earlier that we can bring back.
Yeah, Val Renault, board member. I just wondered if there was a further update on the water tower park. I noticed it had been on our agenda in October. I just walked by there today and saw someone had a sign that said 600 signatures strong. So I don't know, what the status of any possible change in that design is.
Mark Ecker, Assistant Director. I'm not sure there's been a change in the design. I think the City Commission basically approved the location of the water tower. Now what happens around the water tower is what has potential. Our plan is to come forward with a master plan process that will engage the community on the park itself. So in other words, what amenities do we want to see in the park? Do we want to change locations of things? So I'm pretty much going with the given that we know where the water tower is going, because I think that's been determined. It's just more or less what we want to do around it. So.
And in terms of the public engagement, this is Roger Steinbrock, marketing specialist. We will be probably more than likely moving it into the new year in terms of that engagement in January after the holiday season is complete.
Roger, does that mean you'll just be working with the neighbors to explain, to talk about what they want in the park versus anything about the water tower?
Correct. Roger Steinbrock, marketing specialist, will be engaging them on the park itself. We may have representatives from MSO with us as well. But for the primary purposes of what we're doing, we're looking at the park. So.
This is Pat Phillips, board member. I saw an article regarding an extension to the skate park in the paper. And I was just kind of curious. I don't recall seeing that on our CIP. And I didn't know what brought that to a decision to have monies put towards that.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks and Recreation. The budget below 50,000, CIP items are 100,000. So we have maintenance. No different than we went to the pickleball group and at Lions Park. That project was $39,000 to repair the concrete over at Lions. So it was one of those projects that if you looked at Centennial Skate Park, the before and after pictures, Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. I think it was built around 2002. It had a renovation around 2010, 2012. Still had a lot of unusable and poor concrete. So this was a repair and an upgrade. So they added some amenities out there. There were some safety issues when you transition over. There was a user group had some photos of people crashing that were concrete related. So when working with the Lawrence Skate Association, which is a partner like the Pickleball Association, we decided to go ahead and repair that this year. They had a contractor that was interested. We put the bid out and they got it. It was like $39,500 initially. The association group wanted to know if they could raise money and could add to that project. So they added to it. It still kept it under 50,000. So it didn't need to go to the city commission. We didn't have to bid it out separately again. We were able to add an addition onto that project. I would highly encourage everybody to go down there and take a look at it. It's pretty cool. I was down there Friday and I was down there Saturday. It changed the whole aspect of how that skate park is used. Before you had the kids in one corner because part of the concrete really wasn't that usable. Now it's moved them over to the other side and more fluid through the whole park.
Yeah,
Roger Steinbrock, marketing specialist. Did you take your board with you, Derek?
No, I will say this. I think sometimes there's a perception in the community that stereotypes skateboarders as maybe a group of people they don't want to engage with. And what I see out there more is fathers and kids or single parents and kids to individuals that like to roller skate out there. But go ahead, Pat. You had a follow-on question.
But no, I just want to compliment on the incorporating the users with the project. And did they also give some suggestions of what they wanted to see added? Yeah, great.
Oh, yes, we heard lots of suggestions from the group. Parks and Rec. They dream big, and that's cool. We also dream big, and we're also have multiple user groups that are seeking grant money. The Friends of Oak Hill Cemetery received a heritage grant, and then they had some funds of their own that they were able to raise. We have a CIP item for $100,000 in 2022, which brings that project to work in Oak Hill up to around 116,000. Skateboarder group is also looking at, could we have a destination attraction? So there's opportunities there. They've been working with Explore Lawrence. We are working with many outside organizations that are seeking federal grant dollars, and our capability of the right grants is low, although with the city, I think it's going to get better. The city has contracted. I learned a little bit more with a group to do some grant works as a city. So I'm encouraged. If we can do levers of support, we can help people out. I think the limiting factor for us is the finances on these big projects.
Thank you.
Mark Ecker, Assistant Director, something I might add on the community engagement on the skate park. Basically, they designed it and we just went, okay. So they were drawing it out on napkins and we need this ramp to tie to this ramp to this rail and you skate it this way. And we kind of, sure, that'd be great. And we can do that for the budget. And they said, yes. So that's how those got designed.
Jackie
John,
Becker.
you're muted.
Sorry. Oh, go, John. Sorry.
John, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I was on the city commission when the skateboard park was first, suggested. And boy, the prejudices that we had at that time were now are laughable, but in some ways there's some learning that we can learn from that. I think, that those prejudices were so misplaced, whatever. But looking back on it, it's like, yeah, well, that was then. But maybe we ought to think that there's some contemporary analogs to that.
Roger Steinbrock, marketing supervisor. I would say that I said that to Derek because I know he does have a skateboard. That's one of the things. The other thing is, this is the same group that created the do-it-yourself skate park in an area that wasn't authorized, and we took it out back in 2014. I think that was in the article. But through communication with the group, I would say these folks that are in the skateboard association are great people. We've worked with them on a number of things. We actually had a competition this last Labor Day weekend, I think it was, that we had or Memorial Day. I get those two. I think it was Labor Day actually. Where they had a competition that we kind of co-sponsored with them. So, I think those relationships are important because they are users. That's the main thing. We want to be satisfying what they do. And I think from what you heard earlier with Craig, community engagement is just starting with the community and the city. And I'm very pleased as a communicator that will be furthering our engagement with the community.
Jackie Becker, I just have to say, 20 years ago, John, when I was working at a venue in town, we did a lot of charitable events to help raise the money to help with the skateboard park. And it's amazing now to see that those kids are now parents that are now helping raise the money so their kids can skate. So it's really a fantastic way to see kids in Lawrence become parents in Lawrence and continue to give back and create space that can be for all generations, which I think this skate park is doing. So good job, Parks and Rec.
This is Marilyn Hull. Jackie, can I move on to a different item?
Absolutely.
And Mark, this might be for you. I know that there's a proposed annexation of land for residential development north of Rock Chalk Park. My question is, if that development goes through, is that going to change the open character of the Baldwin Creek Trail section of the Lawrence Loop?
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. Yeah, I've looked at the site plan for that. I don't think that's going to majorly impact us. It'll obviously put more houses closer to the property, so it may change the perimeter of that. But I think what we'll try to do is that develops, or as it moves forward, is try to get links into that housing area so that they could access into the paths. Usually that's what we'll try to do when we have a kind of adjacent properties developing by our parks. So we try to make sure that they can get to the park by the means we want them to get to the park, as opposed to other means. So
that's awesome. And what I would like to see, I guess, is a buffer zone of as much as possible so that there is some green space on the north side of the trail. I mean, that's one of the jewels of the loop right now because of the natural beauty there and the openness. And I'd hate to see houses come in and really change the character of that open part of the loop. So is that something that the city can ask for, from the developer, that there be like so many feet buffer zone or something like that?
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. Yeah, as they start developing site plans, we'll start looking at some of that. The good thing about it is the concrete trail is actually not on the property line over there. So there's only one spot, which is on the far east end of the property, directly behind the sports pavilion, that it gets close to the property. So I don't think you would see houses through most of that concrete trail. Now, if you're up on the soft surface trail on the far north end of the park, you obviously would, but Yeah, we could look at, maybe there's a pedestrian easement or a landscape easement that will require on that property line.
All right, any other comments?
This is Amber Nickel, board member. I'm just curious if there is any thoughts or updates about the Christmas light display at the sports complex.
Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. That's a fundraiser project the Sertoma Club has put together. So I think, you know, grand design and then realizing the scope of how big the sports, you know, the youth sports complex is. I think they're all, you know, optimistic that they did a nice job, but they also see potential to do a lot more in the future. So it'll be interesting to get their kind of the recap after they're done on how it went and was it successful and did they raise the funds they're interested in raising. It could be a huge light display as big as that property is out there. And I think that was a little bit of their problem is when they were thinking this out, it was going to be really amazing. And it's so spread out. It's quite a drive around there. I'd be interested if anybody's heard feedback.
Any other board items of interest? All right. Does this mean we're at the place where the meeting gets called? Or am I missing anything else we need to go over? Staff reports?
I didn't put that on here. But
Yeah, it's staff report, Derek Rogers, Director of Parks Rec. It is not on there, but I have some updates and give Lindsay a few seconds to think, see if she's got anything. I've got some things to cover. So I'll let Mark go first, and what he doesn't provide an updates, I'll try to catch. If there's anything Mark wants to catch up on.
Yeah, Mark Hecker, Assistant Director. So basically, obviously, a lot of our time has been spent with the holiday lighting and then, you know, the initial lighting. After that happens, then we always have the maintenance of the systems. So, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but the whole Union Pacific Depot was dark about 2 days after we lit it up. Somebody came in and stole all of our cords. So that was a little disheartening that that's over $1,000 worth of cords. So we had to restring those. But it's kind of a continuous maintenance. Obviously downtown, people kind of want to mess with the plugs. And so we tour down there about every night looking for things that are out and then fix them the next day. So doing a lot of that work, and then leaf cleanup and normal fall, end of fall stuff where we start getting into equipment maintenance and whatnot.
Derek Rogers, Director of Parks Recreation. Unless Lindsay has something, I'll go on with something. And if she's got something, she can harp in a little bit later. Real quick, we met with the Brook Creek Neighborhood Association. They had one of their meetings they invited us to. We talked about the Woodland Park Woods, which Brook Creek Woods. And one of the things that brought this up is they were wanting some trails back there, natural trails. And municipal services operations is going to have to go out, MSO and stormwater, clean out the Brook Creek of log jams. So they're going to make a trail with the machinery. And so we're having the discussion, how can we benefit from the trail that they're going to make and add a couple trails. So we didn't go out and walk the woods with them the other day, but we are going to do that. So we also shared, and some of them knew the history of the woods, the Woodland Park amusement. If you go way back to 19 teens, it had the Daisy Dozer. I think those footings of the roller coaster are still out there. And so it'd be neat to have the historical signs telling the history of the merry-go-round out there, the track that was out there, and as part of the hike, could you walk to some of those foundations? And the Brook Creek Trail they're going to clear out goes clear into the Oak Hill Cemetery. So the other group we're working with is Friends of Oak Hill and Lynn Zollner with heritage signs, historical signage for Pottersfield and for Oak Hill. So wouldn't it be neat if you could walk a trail through the woods and learn about not only the amusement park, but also more about the cemetery? So it's a win-win. Working with North Lawrence, if you drive around about 9th Street and Highland, you see the Hillcrest Neighborhood Association's got the big stone that identifies their neighborhood. North Lawrence is working on signage, and we have an individual who'd like to donate some neighborhood association signage about North Lawrence. It's a historical piece, and that's really cool. And we encourage that for all the neighborhood associations. So we're going to meet, or I'm going to meet with them to kind of preliminarily see what they have on signage and what they would like to do in North Lawrence. Telling the history. January 22nd at the Grover Barn, there's a ribbon cutting on our historical plaques, the city's historical plaques for that. Steve Watkins, Carrie Altenburn are running with that program. Other thing that's interesting, with the strategic plan, we're obviously under unmistakable identity, but we're also very closely aligned with strong welcoming neighborhoods, safe welcoming neighborhoods. Mark's a member of that team. And tomorrow night's city commission meeting, Jeff Creek is the team champion for strong welcoming neighborhoods, or safe welcoming.
I'm on that.
Oh, you're on that
Yeah,
too.
he's not on that.
Okay. Sorry, Roger's on the safe welcoming neighborhoods. But I did see part of the video that they're going to have, and I thought it was really cool. So if you get a chance to see that tomorrow night, I would encourage that. To John's point about the ETC survey, unmistakable identity, I think we've got some of the hardest metrics to come up with. And a lot of those metrics we're asking and working with Porter to add ETC questions that are going to help us get the data we need for our team, our outlook. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything to add from staff? Roger?
I would say that I shouldn't have worn red today with my beard. That Marilyn, I didn't have gray hair when I started, and I actually had hair on my head. So I kind of attribute to that, and I shouldn't have worn red today. So anyway, thanks.
Lindsay, our assistant director, I'll jump in just real quick. I think I covered most everything, but recruiting is a big effort we're working on right now for all areas and all divisions, including, including aquatics. I also wanted to mention that December 4th, we had the holiday extravaganza at the sports pavilion, and it was great. I think it was very successful, and I apologize, I don't have numbers on attendance, but it being my first time to attend it, I thought it was great, and I think staff did a really nice job.
Jackie Becker, Vice Chair. One last question. Was Parks and Rec part of the fairgrounds for the farmers market this past Saturday, or is that someone else in the city doing that?
Eric Rogers, Parks Recreation. I wasn't aware of it. And Mark has worked our agreements with some of the farmers market in South Park, but I didn't know about that. I missed it.
No. It was at the fairgrounds, and it was very, very, very well attended, like lines of traffic everywhere and whatnot. So yeah, it seemed, I believe it was hugely successful. So,
I will say this about the Christmas horse parade. I think I got that right. I'm trying to be politically correct.
Lawrence old-fashioned Christmas parade. Yes.
That was one of the biggest crowds I have ever seen in downtown Lawrence. Diane Stoddard, one of our assistant city managers, had the park at 17th and Tennessee and said there was a lot of folks over by Central Junior High that were watching the parade from that intersection. And then there were people parked in North Lawrence. It was just amazing, the turnout of the public. So that was really cool to see.
Anything else from staff? Looks like we're good. So am I now at the point where it's motion to adjourn?
Well, I would say, Roger Steinbach, Marketing Supervisor, we just want to reiterate the next meeting will be January 10th of 2022. So Happy New Year to you all.
Thanks, Roger. And hopefully you won't be wearing red with your beard next month, because I was going to make that joke and you beat me to it already. I was trying to bring my Bart in because Bart always seems to end on a nice little cheesy joke. So I tried. All right. Well, if no other questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn now.
As Marilyn Hull, board member, I move we adjourn.
Pat Phillips, board member, I second that motion.
All right. Thank you, Marilyn and Pat. And on that note, thanks everybody for my first one, and we'll see you all next month.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.
Holidays.